Come one, come all. This is the ballad of Earth. This is the story of a name. This is the mysticism and wonder of numerology coinciding with coincidence or maybe irony. Join us on this journey of the ballad of Earth, a conspiracy unraveled in the numerology of a name.
So move me, baby. Move like the bough of a willow tree. Ooh, 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 ooh. You move me, baby. Move like the bough of a willow tree. Yeah. Ooh, 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 ooh. Thank you guys for joining me for another episode. Sometimes you just gotta jam. Let that shit rip. So what is the story of a name? I mean, I love, having my own. I love having my own property, my own car. And by love, I mean, I really appreciate, I shouldn't say love. I really appreciate having all of that because what I do love is the intangible. So, what do you do with what you have and you didn't decide it? What you've been given and mandated, and that's the manifest theme of your life. What does that mean? Because that's your name. How does that move you? I looked into that for myself when I was nearing my senior year of high school. Actually, I was in my senior year, and I don't know. I stumbled upon my whole conspiratorial questioning of life and the matrix, so to speak, of how things are. And I'm okay with that, and I'm glad I did. I didn't really share it with a lot of people, and the people I did share it with didn't seem to get it or thought I was overthinking something that was way over their heads. But for me, it was important, and it meant something, because everything lined up. And that's why I wanted to make this episode. Because there's a conspiracy behind the name. And there's a reason why I call myself Earth. And over the next course of this episode, I'll break down the numerology, the purpose, the understanding, the conceptualization of why I've dubbed myself ERTH. Say what you want, think what you will. These are the facts. ERTH. Those are the initials of my legal name. Pronounced phonetically, it reads Earth. Now, for me, that means a lot, because something I've always naturally wanted to get close to was this planet. But I also have an innate, almost intuitive fear of not trusting this planet. And if you've listened to this podcast before and heard my ideology, you'd come to know that I'm a bit of a skeptic, and I'm not opposed to the belief of having lived past lives. And I think there's something apprehensive in my soul about living on this plane of existence. But the older I get, year after year, the more comfortable I feel. And sometimes I wonder if this is the oldest that I've lived in this life. Or at least with these parameters. I don't know. When I was a senior in high school, by then I had been working 2 jobs. I was a lifeguard and a pool operator, which I was promoted to and took the courses and got certified. And then I also realized that the politics and dynamics of a workplace environment, when you are working there more than 2 years and you start to move up in the company, and at that point I was actually working for the county, those dynamics started to come into play, and it wasn't a game I wanted to play. I did not feel like the merit of my work should be based on my popularity with somebody else. So I started to lose enthusiasm for that, and obviously my work hours, scheduling, all that went down, and I got another job as a host at Outback Steakhouse. And I know we all love the Bloomin' Onion, and I really enjoyed working there. It was actually, to me, like, it was a good company to work for. Like, I knew I was getting, literally I went to a bar, steakhouse, to apply for work, and so this is one of my first jobs, my second or third job at that point. I mean, what I put on the resume, because my upbringing, I had been working since I was a damn infant, if you ask me. But there's nothing wrong with that. I'm glad my mother gave me a strong work ethic, and what I wanted, I had to be able to afford. So my basic needs were met, but anything outside of that, which also included school lunch, like my mom made me buy my own school lunch. It wasn't like my parents were, like, giving me money, or it's not like she was buying bread and bologna and cheese. I mean, our fridge always had food in it, but a lot of times it was like leftovers, and so I had options, and that frame of reference, that tunnel vision you get as a kid, like, this isn't good enough for me, actually drove me to get out and get a job, because that's pretty much what my mother told me. Is like, I'm not going to sit up here and pay for everything that you want. And I knew I didn't ask for a lot. I knew that. But I also knew we weren't poor. So, I had to get over the fact that, my mom's making me work, and I really appreciate that she did that for me. I'm really glad she dug her heels in, and not because she was a woman, because every human has heels. She literally dug those heels in and made that decision that, no, you're going to provide for yourself. So it was while I was working at Outback as a host, and it was a slow night. I think it was like a Tuesday or Wednesday. One thing I liked about living in Virginia was that it was still considered the South. And so that's pretty much how people grew up. That's how they treated drinking and things like that. So even though it was a slow night, we always had business. And it's a commercial establishment. The food's going to be good. But it was pretty slow. And I was there until closing. So they give you these little, like, black wax crayons. They're crayons, but the template on the host stand behind there's a map of the restaurant with the tables, and then there's a list of the waiters that are assigned to those tables, and they're listed in their priority number. So the first waiter that's been in there, that's seated in the good or serving the good section, they get priority on where I take those parties of 3 or 2 or 4 or 5. And then you just go down the list. So hosting wasn't that difficult, but it was a matter of being a face of when these people walk into these dark-ass restaurants. Because in my opinion, this company prides himself on setting the ambiance, which is a great marketing tool, and that's why when you go there, it's an experience. But the blocking of sunlight when you work there every day, it's like you're going to work in a freaking dark room to process photos or something, and it's a bar. So I've never been drawn to the whole bar scene. I wouldn't call myself a bar fly because it's too damn dark. I don't like that, but there's a time and a place for that. I just think consistently it wasn't mentally healthy for me. In any case, that would later, come to fruition. So I'm sitting up there just burning the time, trying not to get noticed that I'm not doing anything. So I'm acting like I'm writing shit down on this glass or plastic clear panel on the host stand. And I start writing the initials of my name. And I'm like, I wonder what the number sequence. Like maybe I should play these numbers for the lottery or something like that. So ERTH. E is the 5th letter of the alphabet. R is the 18th. T is the 20th. H is the 8th. 5, 18, 20, 0, 8. Of course, I could have mapped this out to 51,000 or 5,000, not even. So it would have been 518,000. What would it have been? Whatever. You guys know what I'm saying. I throw some commas in there and drop some zeros. I could have read it a whole different way, but the way it was spelled out, each number had 2 digits to correspond with it. If it was a single digit number like 5, obviously it's preceded by 0. But then we would know if it was a multiple of 10 or double one of these digit numbers over 5, should it have 2 numerals representing its value. So 518, 28, 28, 20, 0, 8. To me, in that instance, I realized in around April of 2008 that the date, May 18th, 2008, was approaching in a few weeks. And that's when the wheels really started turning. That's when I realized this might actually mean something. And maybe coincidence isn't happenstance or ironic, but for me to notice this pattern with my own name, to ask this question, and the impermanence of writing on this little clear board over the blueprint of the restaurant, the nightly map, being able to wipe it away. And I remember, writing the numbers and it just looking like letters and number signs and numerals and kind of just looked like crazy dribble. Like, oh my gosh, I'm crazy. I'm paranoid and I'm getting into something I shouldn't be getting into. But I'm so glad I did, because it tapped into a constant questioning of what exactly is going on right now. Am I living in a computer system? Is this a matrix and I'm misbehaving? Or is this a test run? Am I going to do this again? And that's why there was some overlap when I started this life. I don't know, but I do know, because but I just know off of my experience. And so I want to make sure I'm keeping to this experience, but at the same time emphasize the necessity and not negate your own importance of your story. And so I think it's totally okay that this is not some story I just thought about last night. Like, obviously, this is kind of what I think my life is made of. Like, this is the blue ink on the blueprint of my life. And if it's some internet coding type thing, maybe by creating this, somebody out there like you will listen to it and hear it. Maybe you won't. In another multiverse, in another universe, this is happening at the exact same time, but you're actually not listening to me. No play. So yeah, it is what it is. And this is just happens to be one of these runs where it's coincidental. So I'm going to go into the numerology of my name, and I'm going to tell you about these crazy ass sequence of events that popped up prior to reaching May 18th, 2008. And I was a senior in high school. I had been class president going on 4 years at that point. All 4 years of my first time in public high school, I was voted class president at this school that was radically segregated. Like, the minority student population, which made up more than 80% of the school, well, 75%. The minority population. 69%. I'm good at 69. And all of them came from the low-income area. And the kids that were middle class or even upper class, a few of them intermixed with us. You know, there was these ghettos next to middle class, upper class neighborhoods, like new developments and old developments, like the neighborhood I lived in, which used to be a resort. But I really like my neighborhood because the houses there were all designed by different people. So there's not one house that's exactly the same. And you can tell where the new parts of the development are, and they just got like rights to it and built like townhouses at the tips of the neighborhood. But the core of it used to be this man-made lake with an 18-hole golf course. And, you know, where we're located, you know, I think like Congress people or senators, government officials, new private contractors just established themselves there, vacation, did all that. But as the resort died down, the idea of it didn't. And it became this residential community with its own HOA and security guards and things like that. So the neighborhood I grew up in was totally different than most of the even county I lived in. And I felt safe in it because of the surveillance. So it's funny because I'm about to interview with Tony Merkel on his podcast, The Confessionals, on Friday for a live member show, again, for the second time, to follow up regarding this whole conspiracy thing with me. And I'm listening to some of my favorite podcasts, which are like, you know, bingeable crime mystery podcasts. And I'm pretty much learning that anyone with my phone number that has the means and the fucking want to track me can, if they have access to Google and stuff. But maybe that's only like limited to the police and things like that. So I don't know if my conspiracy is, you know, valid, or if somebody with some money is just trying to fuck with me sometimes, or if none of that is happening at all. But that's what my main concern is. So honestly, a good movie to watch is Under the Silver Lake with Andrew Garfield. I just watched that movie, and thank you for doing that, Andrew. Thank you, because that is exactly what it's like to come into manhood in Los Angeles, regardless if you're straight, which he played a straight male in that. But, you know, even if it was a gay guy that wasn't like me, like that was bisexual, like I fucked chicks when I was like in love, or I needed a casting agent to, you know, hook me up. And we were doing blow. Unfortunately, that has been a part of my writer's life. So maybe that's all imaginary. And just a disclaimer, like, I talk about some stuff on this show, but this is all art. So obviously I'm going to sensationalize. And sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not sober recording this. So this all may or may not be true. Just a disclaimer. Hate me if you want to. Believe it or not. So let's just call this method acting, and I'm storytelling about stories that have been based on real instances in my life. But yeah, because to do this is to get into breaking down the fear of going to sleep at night and thinking, oh man, like I said too much and that's on the internet forever and I really regret that. But if you give a fuck about what I say, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, like, with your life. Unless it's really that riveting and you can relate and that's cool, or you can't relate at all and you think that it's good storytelling. Like, if you're a fan, I get that. But if you're hating on me or you knew me beforehand and you're listening to this, like, I kind of like chew that over at night. That kind of keeps me awake sometimes. I'm like, damn, like, but maybe that's just general anxiety. And that's what art is getting vulnerable. But if I don't put my vulnerability out there, then I'm just like everybody else. So when I talk about like what makes me insecure, that's why I'm here. I mean, because that's the only thing that makes me different than any of the rest of us. And that's okay. I think that's totally okay. But I'm taking a risk by producing this and putting it out there and making an episode. And I don't have to do that. But it kind of gives me a rush, and it's kind of like that's what life is about if I do have a purpose and things like that, if I matter. And then if I don't matter that much and it's not that big of a deal, then I should be able to do this. But I wrestle with it. Like, oh my goodness, what did I do in that podcast? Why did I put that out there? But this is what I want to do. And a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress that I may not be able to handle the judgment. And it's like the content that I'm talking about, like a close friend of mine once told me, she's like, it's just a story. Like, that's a story you've told yourself. Like, that's your account of it. And they're exactly right. They are exactly right. It's just my story. That's my account of it. It's what my mind has told me to do in order to survive. And it's what my frontal cortex is telling me to remember in order to survive. Because everything leading up to these events has trained my mind to do this. Like, my mind subconsciously knows survival even though if I'm not thinking about it. So I think that's why I want to talk about my name and why I started my nonprofit organization and called it ERTH. But I also called like my musical persona ERTH. ERTH. And when I told my mom that, she was digging it because she was like, oh, that Bob Marley song, it talks about with the sun named Earth. And that is like, if I think about music, me and my mom listened to Bob Marley with something nostalgically, and maybe that's when I kind of lose myself when Bob Marley played. And maybe that's when my mother really saw me. And that's what as you grow up, you kind of forget how your parents see you. Like, they saw you when you weren't even really looking at yourself. Like, when you were like 4 years old, like doing some weird stuff, like dancing to something or talking a certain way, like you're just doing you. And they see you grow up and you're still doing you. Man, it's beautiful. You kind of forget that as you get older, Getting the little spats, and it's stressful, man. Because I want to take care of my mom. I love her. And life is what life is, y'all. It is what it is. So, I do love my mom. But, you can't buy love. No matter how much I buy her, no matter how much she buys me, you know, that stuff, those things, these gifts, like we could trade those forever. But there's some moments, and I definitely forgot, you know, what moms do. Not in time for Valentine's Day. I mean, not Valentine's Day, Mother's Day. See, that's what I'm thinking about love. My mom's birthday is in February, so back the fuck up. In any case, here's to a good show. So go ahead and buckle up, strap in, because we about to get this party started. About to break down ERTH, the numerology of a podcast. DOG.
E equals 5. Strength of God.
The first letter of my name and my initials is E, as in eccentric. That is the 5th letter in the alphabet, so the number 5. With that, upon doing research, I found out that in Hebrew, that first name that letter represents means strength of God. Also, when I researched the numerology and significance of the number 5, I found that number represents someone full of energy, unable to channel it properly. Someone assigned with that number is full of energy, unable to channel it properly. To me, that might be why I struggle with addiction in many forms and fashions, especially with alcohol, I would think. But alcohol is just like the primary indicator of some other stuff that's going on and other things I'm addicted to, which I think as a consumerist and capitalist, like living as an American, it's like oversaturation. It's having abundance, and let that be a sign of prosperity. And so to restrict oneself and to not be absolutely sober, like even though I'm only drinking on the weekends and things like that, like, you know, not feeding that spirituality by doing what has worked. But, you know, there's different strokes for different folks. And that's what I'm here to present, I guess, is my life dealing with this, because I'm worth it, and someone out there is worth it as well, and they might be a little confused or whatever. So if you're still listening to this so far, I think you might be interested in the struggle, because it's not easy always to just like be in America. And I'm a person of color, I'm black, and I'm also defined by my sexual preferences, which is nobody else's business, which is why it's crazy. But I've made it that way. It's no one else's fault. I disclose that information. So the fallout from there's a lot of energy. I don't know. I just don't take it that the number 5 is by happenstance. And when I stumbled upon this, you got to understand, like, I don't know if it was March or April. I don't know how much time was before I figured out like the date, but 05 were the first 2 numbers to pop up when I wrote this down. So when I did some more research, like life path, I guess there's like numerology with some type of understanding of called life path belief. I guess people that want to know the full circle totality of what this all is, which would take the fun out of it for me. Like, the suspense is cool, you know? I'm just trying to manage the suspense, and I haven't been doing too well. And that's what we dub anxiety. And I just really appreciate actually the time that we're living in, because I don't feel bad about talking about it anymore, because a lot of people deal with it. And I'm not on prescription meds for it. Actually, that's not entirely true, because what I take for my insomnia is technically not for insomnia. But yeah, I haven't taken it past 5 days. I take it off and on. I try not to take it if I've been drinking. So even if I have 1 or 2 glasses of wine or I go out on the weekend, I just don't take pills at all. I don't mix that. And then I detox and clean myself up for a few days, sober, smoke weed, just muscle through, try not to get, on anything, pills or alcohol, and then kind of just ease back into it. So I think that's what everybody's doing, though. So I don't feel that bad about that. It's just, when you're hustling, like, there's not a lot of time to, like, think about it. So you just do what you got to do. And that's where I've lost myself, but also found myself. Like, and if you get comfortable, you can lose a certain pace. So clearly, I've had issues channeling my energy properly. Whatever my aura is, this hue of this letter E in Earth, my first name that my close friends and family know me as, that's what it is. So someone full of energy, unable to channel it properly, but in the life path, it equals freedom above all else. That's a number so for me, for that to be like my first number, 5, we have 5 fingers, 5 toes, things like that. It also represents, above all else, I desire in my nature to be free. And it's funny because in my room I have the liberty or death, don't tread on me flag with the rattlesnake. And I live in rattlesnake country right now. I have my dog. Like, that's actually a constant fear of mine. Like, I'm not like a phobic about snakes, but in the wild, hell no. Because I lived on a lake and I've seen snakes in the woods. Like, you could hear them if you could hear them moving the leaves because they're slithering around. Oh, Jesus. Help me, God. Thank you, Lord. Yes. We about to have some church up in here, y'all. So, life's good on that, and that's the life path number for it. The angel number 5 represents massive change. So, I guess in more of a current rather than totality aspect, this belief in numerology of an angel number represents massive change. And I feel like I'm there right now, and I also feel like I was there in 2008, my senior year of high school, of course, because I knew I had been accepted at that point to Pepperdine University. No, I didn't. Not at that point. So, I have to double check. H, the 8th? Yeah, it is the 8th. Okay. In any case, R. Well, actually, let's stick on E. E, the 5th letter of the alphabet, first letter of my initials, number 5. In the Bible, that is represents God's kindness and favor for mankind. So I think the 5 fingers and 5 toes aspect of our humanity, our mankind, our cognizance, I think that correlates with being made in the image of God in a biblical sense. Because I am a bit of a mystic. Like, I'm a Christian skeptic. I don't even know. But I believe in a very secular, probably, branch of Christianity. And it's just my own. And I hope to start presenting that to people maybe in another podcast. But it's just my own belief because a lot of coincidences in my life have occurred and they've correlated with my belief in Jesus Christ being the way, the truth, and the life to eternal life and nirvana, pretty much. So you can put that however you want, but it is what it is. So that's why I'm correlating the letters of my name, and when I look them up in the Hebrew translations, the actual names, not just the letters, and what I got, it turned me on to the fact that I might have a purpose in life. So I think, look into your name, your initials, even just that, and, go from there and see what those numbers might mean. It's very interesting. So here we go. We're delving into mine. And I have 4 names in my name. I have 2 first names. So you guys are never going to figure out what my name is. Na, 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 na.
R, the 18th letter in the alphabet. It represents wisdom and responsibility. 18. 1, 8. 1 plus 8 equals 9. 9 plus 9 equals 18. Ultimately, every derivative of the number 18 comes down to 9. So 9 will represent 18 in these numerological terms. In any case, dub the significance of 9 doubly so, 2 times the value emotionally, emphasis-wise. Because this is 18 that we're talking about. The second letter of my initials.
The meaning of R in my initials, it's my second first name. So my first name is made up of 2 names divided by a space. It's funny because people always think it's my middle name, that I have 2 middle names, because there's no hyphen. But I remind them of names like Mary Kate, which could be spelled in multiple of ways. And then they tend to get it. So that's why I go by E.R. Hunter. I've been in and out of the E.R. multiple times, so maybe it stands for emergency room. But when I looked into my Jewish, took like a DNA test, Helix, found out I'm Jewish, and I really value that. And so I looked into the name meanings in Hebrew for each one of my names, just in the last few years. R, the R name, that one, Aura. Y'all know that letter R. Y'all know Aura, right? She live up the street. Shit, I might name my next dog Aura. I like that. Irie, what you think about that? He is passed out. We went to the dog park this morning. In any case, so R, the 18th letter of the alphabet, is also the second initial of my name. It represents 18 in numerology. It represents wisdom and responsibility, and I can definitely identify with that. Like, most people that know me, that have encountered me, can identify with that because I have a lot of gray hair. I started graying when I was 13 years old, and I'll never forget it. And it was during a time in my life when I was living with 2 of my aunts, 2 of my mother's sisters, and my grandmother, and one of my aunt's husbands, and sometimes my other aunt's boyfriend. And then the older of the aunts, she already had a daughter that was 4 when I moved there, 5. I think she turned 5. No, yeah, she was 5. She was 4 when I moved there because she had her 5th birthday party before her brother was born, a week before her brother was born. And so there was a new baby, a newborn. And then her husband's sister and her son, who was in his early 20s or maybe 18, 19. So it was a full house. And sometimes my younger aunt's boyfriend, who would later be her husband. And happy birthday to their daughter. She is about to start high school soon here. So, yeah, love her. Was there when she was born as well. So it was a full house, and I was sleeping on a cot I would pull out from the laundry room in the basement. My room was pretty much the laundry room. It had a 6-drawer, like, shelving thing in there that we moved in. Just drawer with 6 things, 6 shelves. And that's where all my stuff was. I went to private school, but I'm really grateful for that time in my life. So I noticed that when I was 13, the first time being away from my mom, like stressed out. 9/11 happened, 2001. So it just went down. I guess I was 11 years old when 9/11 happened, right? I don't know. I got to do my math on that. Yeah, I was 11 years old. I noticed I got my first gray hair that year, and it was right in the middle of my cowlick. I also have a cowlick, and so in the front of my head, it literally looks like a cow knelt down over a fence and licked my hair, but I don't know if that's natural or the story goes that actually one of these aunts I was living with, the younger one, cut my hair and cut it the wrong way for my first haircut, and that's why I have a cowlick or something. But I don't know if that's true or not, if it's genetics, but it's a hell of a spot to have your hair just start growing in reverse because it's right at the front of my fucking forehead. So the R name, second letter of my initials, in Hebrew means God is my help. Help of God. God is my help. So my first name meant strength of God. Power of God. My second name means God is my help. So there's this empowering first name and then this humbling second name, and I really appreciate it. And it's taught me a lot, actually. I've realized this at a point where I needed to realize it in my life in the last couple of years. So I don't count it happenstance, my name meaning what it does, and me finding this out thus far. So in many numerological terms, the number 9, it represents an ultimate goal of someone that is assigned to save humanity, to serve them, a person that is of service. And we kind of mentioned like drug and alcohol addiction and a lot of treatment and rehabilitating. Living past that and not having to use drugs and alcohol has to do with serving others. And so now I'm finding out that my name literally means the ultimate goal is to serve humanity. And I'm okay with that. Help of God. So God is my help. That's what that means in Hebrew. And it has a lot of humanitarian, philanthropic, service-oriented ideals backing this number 9, and then it's a double emphasis because we're actually talking about the number 18. Spiritual number. I guess there's spiritual numbers, and this number represents karma and universal spiritual laws. So I'm definitely a believer in karma. Everything to me seems to be pretty cyclical. So that's one reason I can calm myself down with anxiety, is to let myself know that, wave ebbs and flows. Bad things come and they go, and it's okay that they're gone. And it's okay that something else negative might come up. It'll go down again. And so it's not remembering that can be stifling, or getting caught up in the how do you say, the trusk of a wave, or the bottom of it, and you're underwater and it keeps pushing you down and you're right there in that cyclical motion going over and over and you can't catch your breath. Sometimes it feels like that. So that's why I need some type of spiritual frame of reference. And I'm okay with being reminded in my second name that God is my help. I have no help without him. It, her, it, they, universe, creator. And life path. There's also this numerology belief system called like the life path, I guess, or something about a path of lives. I'd love to hear more about it, so feel free to email me at ERTH. And that also has to do with serving. So the number 9 representing service in many aspects. 9 is a very intrinsic number because it does something kind of strange when you multiply any other number by it. So when you multiply another number by 9, add the resulting digits and reduce them to a single digit, so I'm guessing that means subtracting them from themselves, it always becomes 9. Any number increased by a factor of 9 loses its identity and takes on characteristics of 9. No other number has that quality. R is the 18th number. It's double of 9. So maybe this is a sign that I'm supposed to give up my life to be of service. Over and over. And that'll be nirvana. And maybe it is. I've been of service. I've done mission trips. I've helped people. I give to the homeless and donate to charitable things. But I know I could do more in many ways with my lifestyle. And maybe one of these religions or something, ritualistic practices like Buddhism, something like that would be healthy for me. So I think that's another calling type thing, or maybe reference. But I feel like there's definitely an innate, with 18 being double of 9, like it's my duty, like it's double stamped for me to be of service to humanity, and we need that now more than ever. Which is kind of a huge relief, because then that means I don't have to be a politician, unless that does mean I have to be a politician. Hi, caramba.
T, the 20th number in the alphabet. It represents redemption. T is the third letter in my initials.
So, now that we're over halfway through this, I should probably confess something. I'm named after the patriarchs of my family. So, my mom named me my first name after my father. And my second first name is my great-grandfather, who was more like a dad to her. Then my middle name is actually her only brother. She's had 4 siblings. She's the oldest of 5. And one boy is in between 2 girls on both sides, elder and younger. My last name is that of my father's, because they weren't married. And in California, if the woman is not married and she has the child takes the father's paternal last name. In any case, this third initial in my name, T, 20th letter of the alphabet, it represents redemption, and it represents infinite potential with relationships and diplomacy, which is particularly interesting because I've done a lot of stuff with leadership and managerial and just prominent entertainment stuff. So I get that. My uncle, on the other hand, is very relationship oriented, and he's got a lot of kids, and he's very fertile, to say the least. And he's just got such a big heart, and he's such a good dad. He's such a good man. And I get envious because my biological father wasn't around when I was growing up. And so to see my uncle being so present in all of his kids' life and actually making an effort and fighting for his rights as a dad is amazing. Because as a man, he does have to fight for his rights as a father. So I'm proud to carry his name, because even though I might not have kids or may never spread my genes, he's done that plenty enough for the both of us. You filthy motherfucker. No playing. I love him. So this name, this T, this initial, this 20th letter of the alphabet, comes up 5, 18, 20, and then the last initial will be the number 8. But 20 represents infinite potential with relationships and diplomacy. It it's vibration. There's vibrations with these numbers, is expressed with a strong need to learn patience so appropriate actions can actually happen. So a strong need to learn patience so that the appropriate actions can actually happen. I mean, kids will definitely try your patience. So I think that coincides with his journey. And for me, I have definitely had to learn patience growing up because I grew up with a single parent. So being late to school, being late getting picked up, like not being an after school program, like being raised by a woman, like females shop and makeup and they work, and like my mom was a young lady, like she lived her life, like it was so cool. Like I had a great upbringing and she did the damn thing. Like, but there was a lot of times like I had to, like in the 90s you could just wait in the car. Like, and which should have never happened, or just wait around alone in the store and stuff. But I just was raised to be independent. I knew not to get it, deal with strangers and shit like that. But I also would mess up, and like sometimes I thought I was holding her hand in the mall, and then we'd look up and it was like another, like it was like a white lady, and she was surprised we were holding hands, and I was surprised, and I was like, "How did you not feel me take your hand?" But that's just the type of stuff you do when you're a kid running around shopping malls and stuff with your single mom, who's gorgeous, and she had a life to live, and I'm glad she lived it. And she dated a guy that raised me, and he actually fought my uncle. They got into a fist fight over me at one of my little league t-ball games. And pretty much, halftime during this game, I realized that I wasn't going to be playing in it. Actually, after we found out we were going to the championship, because this was the championship game, they took us all out to eat the whole little league baseball game in my coach's pickup truck. And the whole team sat in the bed of the pickup truck. It was cool, to ride around the city of Atlanta in the back of a pickup truck. But they had me sit in the cab, and I sat in the middle seat between like pretty much my uncle. He was like my mom's boyfriend's best friend, and he was always my little league coach because I played for the same team because him and my dad fucking coached the team. And he told me how I'm not going to play in the championship game. It's just not going to happen, I mean, my athletic performance was not good. I had a lot of performance anxiety, and I just seldom perform well. And when I did make contact with the ball during an actual game, it was a foul ball. But I hit the shit out that foul ball. I'll tell you that. That was a beautiful pop fly. It wasn't in line with this American sport. So yeah, I'll never forget that. Like they told me, like, you're not gonna play in the game, and like I wasn't riding in the back with them. Like they could have told me that at any other time. But you just do that to a kid. Like, I was devastated, man. I was devastated. But, I've never done this before. I've never lived this life before. So I just kind of put up with it and rolled with the punches. And the game happened, and I just endured it. I guess I kind of forgot the fact that they were serious. So during the halftime, I went up, and my uncle was sitting next to my mom and my dad. And I was telling him, I was like, I just want to leave. Like, I want to cry. Like, I don't want to be here if I'm not going to play. Like, this is embarrassing. And he was like, it's cool, man. Just stick it out. And I remember going back down there when the game started, just to the dugout, to sit on the bench again. And after the game, I kind of get whisked away. And this is urban Atlanta. Like, the reason I was even playing Little League is because it was in the hood of Atlanta. Like, this was back in the day. Like, there are stories, y'all. There's stories like Sierra dancing on the hood of cars in this park, like how she does in her music videos on the hood of Cadillacs. Like, this one when she was in Atlanta doing that joint for real, like at the down by the skating rink. You know what I'm saying? Like, still goes down to this day. And that's how I grew up. And I was this light skinned. I look white with green eyes, but I had black hair. Like, so confused child. But I get whisked up after this game, and I'm probably in 4th grade at this point. I'm trying to get a juice box. First of all, after the game, that's when we get our snacks. And I'm like, hold on, why are you rushing me? And this lady's like, you got to get your car. She's like, they got in a fight. I was like, who got in a fight? So I get in the car, and they put me in the front seat. First of all, why am I riding in the front seat and my uncle's in the back? His head is busted open above his eye, and he's crying, talking to my mom while she's driving. He's not crying, but he's upset. And pretty much him and my dad got in a fight. And the fight happened because after I walked down from it complaining about not playing, my dad and my uncle started talking. And my uncle, being my mom's brother, was like, well, he's more my nephew than he is your son. To this man that literally taught me how to throw a baseball, potty trained me, wasn't my biological father, but had been in my life for a good 4 or 5 years at that point. And I guess he wasn't having it. And they got into it. So later, apologies were made, and they made sure I saw that just as men. And but I mean, that was wild. That's where I come from. So this number is third letter in my name. The spiritual numbers, like they believe that 20 is just broken down in the 2 and the 0, and it ultimately represents a assignment to listen to my own intuition, which is something I do need to constantly be reminded of. Now, biblically, this breaks down to just redemption, and Hebrew-wise, because of Kaf. And Kaf is the 20th letter in the Hebrew alphabet. And it means palm. So palm up, actually, which is a giving gesture. So ultimately, it's like giving back. Correlates also with that R, that 18. And just on a side note, back to 18R, biblically, the 18th letter represents Chi, which I know in Greek means Christ, Christos. And I happen to be a part of a fraternity that includes that in our name. Like I am a Sigma Chi. I am Sigma Chi. So go figure. Things fall into place like that.
H, the fourth initial of my name, is the 8th letter of the alphabet. 08. It represents regeneration, otherwise known as resurrection.
The letter H is the 8th letter in the alphabet, and it's the last letter of my initials. The name that it stands for is Hunter. Hunter. Ironically enough, Jäger in German means hunter. Jägermeister means master hunter. I can't drink that stuff. I get start dancing on tables in nightclubs. That's what happens when I drink Jaeger. So maybe it's in my blood. I don't know. Feeling like a king. But in Italian, it's cacciatore. And a lot of us have enjoyed some pasta styled as cacciatore. I don't really know what that includes. Maybe I've made it and didn't know it, but it sounds spicy. But one thing about having the last name Hunter that I've definitely always remembered is that a hunter knows the importance of patience, the importance of stillness, the importance of the moment. And so, but it's not always about hunting. Maybe that's the balance. Not everyone's out to get you type thing that I need to realize. Just stumbled upon that. In any case, numerology-wise, I did some research. I found that the number 8 means assertive, determined, and responsible. Skilled with finances, business, but often misunderstood for representing money and power. Spiritual number-wise, like that ideology with the vibrations, It's a vibration, the number 8, someone that's been assigned that, of self-confidence, inner strength, and personal power. And I can definitely relate to that. Those are definitely vibrations I think that are more required of me than what I put out. And I'm glad that they are, because that's what having honor and living honorably is about. And having esteem and doing esteemable things. Like, that's why we do that. So for me, that's why I do that. I think innately in my spirit, I feel that vibration. Like, I'm required to build my self-confidence, to strengthen my personal power, and to use that power for good. Now, it's associated, the number 8, with authority, wealth, success, and professionalism. And I've always prided myself with being professional, and so much so to a fault. And it's unfortunate because I expect so much of myself, and I feel like I get constantly let down by others, especially in the general workforce. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, like, why aren't you, working?" And I'm doing what I got to do to make money, and I'm investing my money into what my passions are. And it's a risk, but it's a risk I'm willing to take. And this is my time to strike regarding that. And so I'm going to live up to my name. And it's the number 8. And 8 biblically represents a time of new beginning. With 7 being the number of completion, 8 is that number of a new beginning. And hence, we get the references of resurrection and regeneration. And so maybe I am supposed to be on this journey of constantly or cyclically regenerating myself and renewing myself and resurrecting and having the old me die and a new one come anew. And that's how I function. I think that's okay. I think that's totally all right. If these numbers have to do with anything at all, and if they're not circumstantial and just by mere coincidence, I find it awfully ironic. In any case, here's the
conspiracy part. This is the part we didn't warn you about. So if you're going to listen from here on out, it might freak you out a little bit, because I start to rehash some stuff that happened, some memories, some facts, and, this is why it all lines up for me. This is why I wanted to make this episode. Enjoy. Just a disclaimer. If you hear some smacking in the background, some chewing, some chomping, some crunching, that's my dog. And he's had all day to eat, but he's decided right now is the time where he wants to feast. So, I apologize if it's an inconvenience, but honestly, let it serve as a public service announcement to go and rescue your local dog and learn something about yourself, learn something about the dog, give something away so you can keep getting what you got type deal. You know what I'm saying? He's my heart and soul. It's Irie. And I do apologize for any inconvenience, but he's going to do what he wants because he's a pit bull and I'm not reaching my hand by his fucking bowl. So you can go fuck yourself if you think a little dog chomping in the background is an inconvenience for your sensitive ass ears.
To be growing up in Virginia and going to high school in kind of this rural suburbia outside of Metropolis was something I never took for granted, and I knew that I wanted. The energy there, the vibrations there were very nostalgic, to say the least. Like, I always got that vibe. Very novelty, very honest and pure and love-oriented. And so Virginia's for lovers, and that's the vibe it gives off, and that's what it is. And it's kindness, it's compassion, it's gentle, and for the first time, I had a brother. And it wasn't for the first time. it had been pretty apparent. Like, he moved into my house so that we could go to high school together. And I really appreciated that because high school was very intimidating for me. And we were around the same age. He was only a year younger than me. And that's how we'd always grown up. I mean, we would travel together and go on like vacations to our grandmother's house in St. Thomas. And we'd wear the same T-shirts, like Nike logo, just front and center, same shorts. Like, we'd match clothes, and we'd also get into crazy fist fights, like bad fist fights, like wrestle. And like, I was always jealous of him. I think because I knew he had what I didn't in many regards. But for, the last couple of years while we had to live with parents and family, we decided to do that together, and we got along, which takes a lot. But he was the closest thing I've had to a brother. So we decided to go golfing, and just to shoot some balls off this range, and then maybe do some, like maybe 9 holes, and it's like a walking course. That's the beautiful part about where we lived, is there were so many just small golf courses. You didn't have to be some big pro or badass. Like, there was a lot of places to practice and get good. And that's what we were going to do. We are going to hang out. And it was just going to be some us time. And it wasn't a big thing, but it was a guy thing. And we both made sure we were there for it. And so, like, yo, you want to go hit some golf balls? Yeah, let's go do it. And at this one range I knew across town, not too far, like probably a 10-minute drive. And, we're going to take advantage of the good weather, too. So we get in my parents' Land Rover that they let me drive, because I was that kid. But he was the kid that he wouldn't even ride with me to school. Like, he wasn't really impressed with the fact that I drove one of my parents' Land Rovers to school every day. He was more so wanted to do his own thing, and people didn't even know we were related for the most part, which is super interesting. But a lot of the females I hung out with, the older, they were older than him, and they're like, he is so cute. Like, they would just always talk about how adorable he was and be like, shut up. And because of who he was, such a nice guy, his friends looked out for me. And I really benefited from fostering a good fraternal relationship with him. And, I love him. And he knows that to this day. So it's really cool because I don't have siblings, but we know that we're siblings type thing. And also my younger cousin I spoke about earlier, she knows that. So we just always be like little sis, big bro, like when we're, DMing each other and all that stuff. In any case, this particular day, which was exactly 2 weeks before, before May 18th, 2008. This was May 4th, 2008. 14 days before that. And I had known about this numerology thing with my initials, but I didn't really pay too much attention to it. But I knew it was coming up, So I also knew this was exactly 2 weeks beforehand, and I wasn't really expecting anything big to happen. But I do remember knowing that this was sequentially 2 weeks away. So we're on our way to go golf on the other side of our county, and I get a discount because I'm a lifeguard and I work for the county. So that's why also it was cool to like learn and practice golf around, at these local parks and golf clubs. Well, we stop at a Wawa, which is a really cool gas station. I wouldn't even call it a gas station. It's an experience with gasoline. Wawas are on the East Coast. I don't know. I've never seen one on the West Coast, and they are something very interesting. So American, but at the same time, a little European in the fact of their convenience and novelty. And I greatly appreciate them. I do. Well, I need to get gas, and we'll call my cousin Goody. Goody decides to just stay in the car, and the car is facing the center store. And it's probably around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe 3:30. It's not late. And I go in there, but I want to get cash out because this is one of the ATMs that doesn't charge me a crazy fee. So I'm standing in line for the ATM, which is on the far side near the restrooms and the convenience store. But there's a rack of candy to my left. But I leave enough room for people to walk by or whatever. But it's not that busy inside. It's just the middle of the day, bottom line. And this guy is at the ATM. I'm not really thinking much of him at all. But he keeps sticking his card in and out of the machine, and then he starts to press buttons, and he's jamming his finger into the machine like he's got a problem. And I don't know if he's drunk. He's a white male. He's probably in his late 30s or 40s, early 40s. But I don't know. And I'm just kind of oblivious, like minding my own business, waiting to use the ATM. And I'm trying kind of not to get embarrassed that I'm waiting for the ATM because at that point it's just like, why aren't you using your card? Like, what's wrong with your finances? You got me thinking. But in any case, he's doing this for like 2 minutes, like over and over. And then he gets to the PIN number screen and he's toot, toot. So after about 2 or 3 minutes, he just starts jamming the card in and out, in and out, in and out. And I'm noticing this because it's kind of violent. I'm like, what is he doing? And then all of a sudden, this man starts acting like a zombie. He starts convulsing while he's taking these small steps with his right leg back, pivoting on his left as he swings backwards steadily, step after step, murmuring with his mouth open. His hair hasn't been cut in a while, and his jaw is just dropped. And he's, and I'm wondering, what the fuck is going on? And he starts to step towards me. He starts screaming, and he falls back on his left foot. He just swings over that heel that's been staked in the ground. And he's falling, and he's falling, and he lands, and his head sweeps along the candy rack. The rack of all these candies hanging. And then his head slides his whole body onto the ground evenly. And he's convulsing still. His eyes are wide open. His mouth is open, agape. And there's a pool of dark red blood forming slowly but thick, like a halo around the back of his head. I said, someone get some towels. Someone get some towels. Someone call 911. Someone get some towels because I'm a lifeguard and I should know what to do right now. I should know what to do. And somebody comes from around the kiosk where they check you out, the check cashier stand. It's a black girl. I tell her, go call 911. Somebody else comes around from out the back. I tell them, get some towels. They said, I got white towels. I got white towels. I said, okay, well, get them. Get them. And then another white man walks in and he's wearing kind of the same kind of t-shirt and these baggy jeans and work boots. And he runs to this man's side who's convulsing. And he starts screaming this man's name. He said, this is my brother. This is my brother. What happened? He said he got shot in Iraq. A bullet went through the back of his skull. It went through his face. He gave him the same. What happened? And I can't say anything. I'm just watching these people put towels around him. And someone even reaches for his head. And I tell him, don't touch him. Don't touch him. Because I know all the rumors are false. You don't put a spoon in someone's mouth. If you don't know what to do, then you don't do anything. But all I knew what to do was to stop that blood from streaming all over this gas station, this Wawa. And I just stand there. No less than 2 minutes later, paramedics come in. And they start doing what they gotta do, and I back out slowly. I meet that same black girl that ran up. She wanted to help, but had no idea what to do. She was in shock. She just went back to her cashier stand, and I met her there. And I put on money on my gas tank, and I walked out to my car, where Goody was sitting in the front seat. The fire trucks, the lights, paramedic, ambulance, all out there now. And I start pumping my gas. And I finish. I don't even know how much money I put in the tank. All I know is I was trying to process what had just happened. But I sit in the car, and before we leave the station, I asked him, I said, you saw those firemen run in there, right? And Goody said, yeah. I said, and you knew I was in there? He said, yeah. I was like, so all this time you've been waiting in the car and you didn't want to come check to see what happened? And he just shrugged it off. Yeah, I didn't really think about it type thing. I literally picked up in his spirit because we are so closely bonded. He was like, I honestly didn't think about it, the way that he shrugged and looked out the window the other way. And I think that he's like that. But for me, my anxious ass. So that's why, his life is what it is today and mine is mine, because I definitely overthink things. But I'm always looking out for something bad to happen, because this is one of the things that happen. In any case, we went off and we played golf, and I don't remember that being a phenomenally good day for me playing golf. But I'm glad I had something to do after that. And we definitely spent that time together as guys, because we did not talk the whole time we played golf. And that's just how it was, and that's okay. Like, that was really, those are the memories that you want to hold on to. It's those people that you don't have to spend a whole bunch of time chit-chatting with. But you can be with and be and just be. In Italian, to say that I am is sono. Io sono. And I think it's so beautiful. It resonates. Oh no. It reverberates, and Italian's a strong language in my life. So, a week later, a week after May 4th, 2008, and a week before May 18th, 2008, 05182008. It was May 11th, 2008. And for the past 4 years before that, I had functioned as a charitable philanthropic leader with my class. As president, we raised $2,008 every year to be donated to the Relay for Life charity with the American Cancer Society. So, 2008, which is a huge feat our freshman year. It wasn't a huge feat our junior year, senior year. People were kind of sick of us asking them for their money, but we did it year after year. And this Relay for Life event, I knew it because it's a weekend where you literally stay awake for over 48 hours because it's a relay. And so you're going around the track making laps, relaying, raising money. You gain sponsors before you get on that track. And you have people sponsor you, and they pledge 25 cents a lap, $1 a lap, $50 a lap. And you're on that bitch for an hour, 8 hours, or 24, or 48. Because maybe somebody you know that you've lost from cancer, their name is written on a candle-lit bag along that track. So it's a little bit easier to make those laps over and over again. And I know that, and I say that from experience. This was near and dear to my heart, these events. And they commemorated the end of the school year with some of the best class officers I could have ever asked for, year after year. I might have been class president all 4 years, but I was nothing without the cabinet behind me, without the board behind me. I'm gonna have to edit that out. And my treasurer, and my secretary, and my historian, and my reporter, this was our team. These are the people that stayed late after school, came back after their sports practices, and helped decorate for homecoming and prom and talent shows, and holiday dances and events and fundraisers. Breakfast with Santa every year. Because we were in a new public school, and we gave people like me an out to grow and to be extracurricular, even though you might have not been that smart or that rich. You could always stay after school a couple hours, because there might have been a bus leaving at 2:30, but there was also a bus leaving at 5:30. And it might take you across town, and you might have to ride with some kids from other schools, but you know what? If you're like me and you weren't rushing home after school, and by the time I got my permit, I was working. And even when I was working, I started working just on the weekends, but then I got my permit after a year or two, and so then I got my license. And I was 18 when I was a senior, so I was 16 when I was a sophomore, late junior. So I was kind of doing the high school dream thing, but I always felt older than most of the kids I was hanging out with, just because I had that perk of being a year really above my grade. And that's because the private school I went to, there was a pre-K, a pre-kindergarten. And I needed to be in there because I definitely have attention deficit disorder. But I learned how to manage it without drugs. And that's a conversation for another day on how that coping strategy was enforced in my life. But it is what it is. And I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor. But when you forget to write your name on your homework or your test while you're taking a test, and you forget to finish the test, because I would just start doodling, I'd just start drawing, and then you get reprimanded at home because your parents are spending a lot of money on sending you to this private school, and then you're not performing. They don't have money to also send you to a psychologist or a frickin' doctor to diagnose you with ADHD in 1994, 95, 96, 97, 98, the 90s. And, you know, they did what they had to do to remind me, don't forget to finish your fucking test while you're taking a test. And by college, you know, I would be the last one to start my test. I'd come in late on test days, and I'd be the first one to finish. Like, I speed through tests, and I get B's. I always got B's, because your first answer is always going to be the right one. Then you start doubting yourself. The human brain's an amazing thing. It's absolutely amazing. It's invigorating. Trust your intuition. In any case, May 11th, 2008. I was leaving the hospital in the middle of my county, near also where I would be working, waiting tables. By then, I had transitioned from host to a waiter at an Italian restaurant, Carrabba's. And I was a candy striper at the hospital because I knew in order to get into college, you needed volunteer hours. You need to do volunteer work. And it was a given. I'm going to do whatever I can do to go to college and to get into a good school. And I am so glad that I did what I had to do to get where I got. And I am not ashamed to be where I am at today. I am not. That's why I get to do this. That's why it's me. I'm the one exposing my life, bleeding out my truth so you don't have to. And that's okay with me. We're gonna be alright. Because if I can get through what I'm going through, this isolation, this loneliness, this moment in my life, this emotionally desolate but absolutely liberating moment, absolutely invigorating and substantially filled with the drama of life. Scary but true. Necessary but true. Ominous but true. So I'm here. And that day, I am in an orientation for this volunteer program. And I know it's a week before the numbers of my name match up. And I have not told much of anybody this. And anyone that I have told has totally blown me off by the second sentence. There's no reason to tell people about the numbers of my name, matching the date and the correspondence. But I can't help but think about it. And I remember sitting in like this empty cafeteria in the hospital, getting our little blue vests on and the patches, and the program was what it was. And it was almost like straight out of a fucking TV show. And that was fine. I could do that easy. A few hours a week, get on my resume, just a matter of actually doing it. And I did. And walking a little metal cart down some hospital corridors in the middle of the night is not fun or easy. Damn, I'm really glad I didn't see no ghosts. I was down there. But I was always creeped out. I was always kind of like on the prowl for that, like that paranormal stuff. So, dang, that goes back deep with me, which is totally fine. In any case, May 11th, 2008. I leave the hospital because it's Relay for Life. And I slept the night before. Relay for Life goes on, I believe, Friday, Saturday, and ends Sunday. And we needed to be there. Someone needed to be at our tent, and that was usually me and my officers every year because we raised the most money, because we did what we said we were going to do. And a lot of times when you're young, you just stay up all night that weekend. But by senior year, you realize I could be using this weekend to sleep, or you kind of sneak off with your friends and party and come back. But we were kind of rotating in and out. And I rotated in, and we had a good time for like a few hours. But I remember catching some shut-eye so I could get up and go to this orientation to be a candy striper at the hospital. So I do that, and the hospital's right by the shopping mall. Like, I grew up here. I was hit by a car at that shopping mall, like literally facing there. And so me, in my parents' Land Rover, I'm crossing this main intersection right in front of the shopping mall, leaving. So it's about 12 noon, and I'm trying to get back to Relay for Life because I need to be there because I'm class president. And I don't want it to make it seem like I skipped out on my functions. And a lot of stuff goes down during the end of the event. So, and it's like really empathetic stuff. Like there was already candlelight visual the night before, and we're closing down this event. It's about cancer and it's about raising money, and this is our last year doing it. So I wanted to be there as much as I could. So I get out of there and I'm going through this main intersection that I've gone through over and over, and I'm still wearing like khakis, white polo, blue little vest, just looking like a dweeb. And I go through this intersection. I'm not even all the way through it, but I'm passing the gas station on the corner to the right of me. I look in my side view mirror on the left because there's a car on its side, like belly up, facing me. So the undercarriage of the car is looking at me while the car is sliding through the intersection on its side really fast. Like it looks like a movie is happening in my side view mirror. And I look in my rear view mirror, and that car goes through my rear view mirror and comes to a stop. And that's when I realized that was the car right behind me. And I pull over into the gas station parking lot. And I see that car, and it's still tilted on its side. It's along a median I had always stopped at to make the left turn at that intersection, or, late nights driving home from work, things like that. This was my neighborhood. That could have been me. And so I park the Land Rover and I get out and I notice one other car, and just a couple of people like me start running towards the problem, because it looks like there's people inside of that car that's on its side. And it looks like there are probably people inside of the student driving car that hit it, that's sitting in the middle of the intersection. This was a moment. This was absolutely a moment of my life. And it was a week before the date that my initials seemed to spell out. I mean, boom, boom. I heard it. I pulled over in that gas station. I got out my car, and it was like I could feel the wind against my forehead and my cheeks, and I'm looking at this car that was right behind me. Could have been me. Still on its side. Slid through my side view mirror, through my back view mirror, my rear view mirror, and is resting on this median I had waited so many times before at that stoplight. So I start running over there. I go over there because I've trained for the last 4 years as a first responder, and it was just innate. And I know that the car is not on fire. It is smoldering. There's some steam, but it's not black smoke, so I wasn't worried. But there's also that risk. There's always that risk that you don't know. Like, it could spontaneously combust. But at the time, it seemed worth it. And I'm glad I approached that vehicle, because I was approaching it no frame of reference on who was inside. And who was inside is what really mattered the most on why I was approaching the vehicle. And it's not that I was going to judge or anything like that. It was more so the less amount of people, the sooner we could get them out. And if they were stable enough to be moved. And they would be the determining factors of that. And having had multiple traumatic experiences before that myself, been in automobile accidents, hit as a pedestrian, and also smashed by an 18-wheeler semi, it's near and dear to my heart. And I know that those moments after the accident, after the crash, when you're in shock, are pivotal. They are pivotal. So I knew I could be of help. I knew I wasn't breaking any laws or anything. Like, I was certified by the county to render first aid to people. So I approached and these citizens were of Indian descent, and how I was able to look in the vehicle was that my standing upright, my toes were at the top of the driver's side window and the driver's side back seat window. It was a 4-passenger sedan. And I'm looking in, and my belly, my torso, I can still feel the heat of this charred metal that flipped over, but the heat of the car radiating off of it is up next to my belly and my groin and my torso, my chest, my shoulders, my neck, and I'm peeking through the passenger side because that's vertical. From the passenger side to the driver's side is a straight shot if you're in the sky through. Because that's how that car is sitting, on the driver's side. So when it slid through the intersection on its underbelly, it was sliding on the driver's side, and the driver's side windows were open. So the driver's face is peeling off of her skull. The muscle tissue looks to be intact, but it just looks like a clean rip for every layer of epidermis. It was like her epidermis was so nicely layered between her muscle tissue and this happened so fast and it was so hot. Everything corresponded so quickly and fell into place to where it wasn't that she got decapitated. It wasn't that she got decapitated. And I'm kind of just realizing that now. I didn't look in and see a person without a head, which definitely could have happened, and that is the naivety of running into an accident like that. It was that her face had gotten halfway just straight up, almost like it was laser surgery, like just singed off of the bone, like off her face, her skin. And it was sitting next to her, like it was still attached, and it was laying next to her. You could tell it like she had been drugged. And that's how her skin was clinging on. The human body is an incredible thing, but it's also an incredibly disturbing thing. So she's not moving, and it's like I don't even notice the man that has been thrown out of his seat that's crushing her on top of her. Maybe he's still in his passenger seat, which is why I didn't notice him, because he's kind of tucked behind the metal that I'm leaning over. And the other way. Actually, it's like I didn't even look up to notice. He was in his seatbelt. He wasn't crushing her. He would have died if he wasn't in his seatbelt. Both of them should have been decapitated. Like, that's the crazy part. I'm just now kind of realizing that. So in any case, there are these two little girls in the back seat. And they are crying, and they are of Indian descent. And I feel bad for them. I feel bad for them because I've gone through this before when I was around their age. And the one thing that gave me solace immediately after the accident was a group of college students that were pulling me out of the wreckage of what was now a sardine can and used to be a car. And the vocalizations in their voice, the joviality, the youngness, like they were like human angels. It's like everything you kind of wish for in a porn, except it's happening to you when you need it most. And you're a little kid that's been mangled in a car accident. I've been there. And I was there for them. And one of the girls was about the same age as my little cousin. Like probably like 10, 11 years old. going through a rough time at the time. And I'm so proud of her. Oh my God, I'm so proud of her. She's graduated from college. She's going back to get some more. Oh, I'm so proud of you, girl. You know who you are. Lulu. Yeah. So, yo. I mean, I haven't really gone back over this story in a long time, so I guess it's like kind of emotional for me. And, you know, when you go through this, it's really therapeutic and it's kind of spiritual because your body's letting it out. Like, I didn't know how I was going to describe the story. I didn't know how I was going to open it up. I didn't know how much time I wanted to spend on setting it up, you know, things like that. But I don't feel rushed and I don't feel like it doesn't matter because it does matter. Because it do matter. Is it? But they weren't. They were okay. They were in shock. So, me and the other people that had pulled over and gotten out their cars, we figured it was clear we can get these people out of here. No harm, no foul. So, get the first girl out of there. We pull her up through the back passenger side window. All the windows are shattered. And then we get her little sister out of there. And there is blood all over her little white dress. And I do a preliminary check as a lifeguard. Like, I know what kids look like with cuts and scrapes and bruises. And even with them in a little bit of shock, you know, I could look at the body and tell if there was blood protruding, as much blood that was on her, it would be apparent. And I scanned her body, did a little preliminary check, like through her head and stuff, her little hair. And she had to be no more than 7 years old. Her sister was probably 11, and they were just crying, like, what's going on? What's going on? And I actually ran. She said, I'm so thirsty. My mouth is dry, as we sit on the curb. And she's looking at this scene with her family in the car. I guess her two parents, maybe. But a male is the third to get taken out the car. And I didn't stick around to help them with him because that was a gory sight. His skull was exposed. He was scalped. His scalp was hanging off of his head. And they pulled him out the car, but he was totally okay other than that. He was fine. Like, he was moving around and walking and stuff, but he was grabbing the back of his head, kind of looking for the back of his head, because it wasn't there. It was hanging. It was dangling. And that was pretty graphic. So the girls, I was trying to talk to them, not let them focus on that. I didn't want to seem caught off guard by it. And the older one was saying she was really thirsty, so I ran into the convenience store. There I was parked. Never got gas there because it was always so expensive, but it was right next to this diner. Actually, I always knew that diner because it was where my mom and my stepdad would take me to go out to eat a couple of times, but it was actually one of the first time I met my stepdad, like, we went out to dinner, it was at that restaurant. And the gas station was right next door to there. So this place was already kind of familiar, but I avoided it at all costs. I got water. I told them, I said, hey, like, there's an accident out there. And they just totally understood the guy inside. And I just got the water, didn't pay for it. And ran it back out there and opened it. And because I remember when I got hit by a car, I just know that feeling after an accident. Your mouth is so dry. And I knew actually I wasn't supposed to give her water. I knew I shouldn't actually done anything, but I did. So by then, paramedics and firefighters start showing up, blocking things off, and their mom is in there, and they're like wondering if she's okay because their mom's face is hanging off of the side of her head. I don't think they saw that. Thank goodness. Maybe not. But they experienced it. They were in shock from the trauma of it happening. And I helped them get out of there, and they used the jaws of life to peel open the roof of that car. And it wasn't until about 3 weeks later I was lifeguarding at another community because I had a certification, multiple certifications, and experience. I decided to kind of be like an independent contractor and lifeguard at different pools because they knew I was going to be circulating out because I was a senior. So it was kind of hard to get hours where I used to get hours because there were new people coming in that needed hours. And I get that. So I just got multiple gigs, and one of them was at this retirement community, and they would run drills with the paramedics actually showing up. The fire people, we actually called 911, and so we met the paramedics. The firefighters help would be on call should we ever have an emergency like that, because it was a retirement community with elderly people, but seldom anybody ever came to that pool. That was a really spooky place too, actually. I should think about that more because I definitely remember being creeped out there. In any case, I talked to some paramedics during a drill and firefighters, and I asked them about the car accident that happened there that day on May 11th, 2008. Sunday, May 11th, 2008. And I asked them about that woman, and they said that she actually ended up being okay because they remember that it was very memorable. And they said she ended up pulling through. So that was really cool to hear. And the next week rolled around, and I can't remember anything notable happening during the week leading up to those days, but I definitely just tried to live my life as normally as possible. And May 18th, 2008 rolled up, and those were the days that I usually went to church in the morning, and I did that. And I remember walking in there kind of in between because there was like multiple church services, and the way I do church, you go to all the services that are there on the morning. That's your morning. That's your Sunday morning. You know what I'm saying? And I just remember knowing and remembering, yeah, everything kind of built up to this, and everything's going to be all right today. Like, I knew the day was going to be no trauma, nothing scary, and I had this serenity. And yeah, this is like the first time I've ever verbalized it, but I did have that. It kind of like just fell on me as I went about my day that day, and nothing crazy happened on May 18th, 2008. And I thought that's what my life was going to come to an end. But it didn't, and I'm really grateful. So that's why I call myself Earth in some regard. It's also more so because it's fucking cool. And Bob Marley wrote in his song, and my mom loves Bob Marley. And she's got a son called Earth, and she feels like she relates to that. So it is what it is. Don't hate, bitches. It's your number one boy, the nigga from another jigger, ER Hunter, a.k.a. Earth, signing off. Ciao, Bella.
July 27th. Don't forget it. Don't not put it in your calendar. It's a live member show. Tony Merkel is interviewing your boy ER Hunter, aka Earth, as you just heard from. So call on it. Run to it. Oh, ciao. Bye.
Hey there, my favorite people. So yeah, it's true. This Saturday, July 27th, 2019, Tony has invited me to join him for a live member show, and I'm super stoked about it. He also asked me to film it, so it'll be live streaming, I guess, with the video chat. So it's a little nerve-wracking, but it's really cool because I really admire the Confessionals podcast. And if you want to check it out, theconfessionalspodcast.com is where you can become a member. And it's just a bunch of like eerie, spooky stuff. And so just on that note and in my whole steez of things, I want you guys to check something out. So the last couple hours, I just ran through my name and its numerology and maybe some significance to that. Well, in the nature of a good horror story, I don't want to leave you with a bad ending. 4-10-20 041020. I got these numbers from a person's name that has 3 letters in it, like most of us, but I have 4 letters in my initials. Because I decided to check it out, and actually I did this last year, and I got 4-10-20, which could come out to April 10th, 2020. Well, the 4th letter in the alphabet is D, the 10th letter is J, and the 20th, as you all probably know from listening to this, is T. DJT. I wonder if something big might happen in the spiritual realm, maybe a reckoning of good against evil, maybe like a revenant type situation. Who knows? But I definitely feel like I've been mauled by a bear, politically, socially, economically. I just keep on going. Never been arrested. Nothing like that. Don't plan on it. Keep on doing right. Staying in my lane. I want that to be good enough. I want to build things and cook things and help others. And I do. But at a certain extent, it starts damaging your pocketbook. And then you start believing in some things. And for me, that's where I started to take sides. It's in the nature of what you see on the streets. When you see people that are less fortunate than you. In many regards. And it's a sliding scale. And it just makes you wonder. So if anything happens on April 10th, 2020, you heard it here first. And you guys know why. All right. Leave you with that little creepy conspiratorial tidbit. Ciao. Thanks for listening, by the way. Leave a review, 5 stars maybe? Nah, be honest. Be honest. That's all right. I know this is rough, and I apologize for the volume being up and down and tracky. I'm getting used to working with this new microphone, and I'm also getting used to just doing something that I love every day. Yeah, oddly enough. So the fact that I'm pushing it out without equaling out the volume stuff, I do apologize for that. But for the sake of time and currency, it needs to be done. You'll be all right. Ciao.